Hello, good morning. My name is Maxwell, and I am going to be presenting why nuclear power is the green alternative. So, the way of how I originally came to the idea of nuclear energy as my topic for this essay was because I wanted to try and argue a main point or a main issue in today's society, that being global warming. As although all arguments are important today, I feel that global warming isn't taken as seriously as it should be. That this is something that is going to affect everybody in this class and might even end up killing a few of us. Our number one contributor towards global warming is our endless addition of carbon dioxide to our atmosphere, whether it be from cars on the road or power plants burning coal. They all release the same gas when burnt, CO2. I started brainstorming and thinking about green alternatives and what a possible way forward could be, whether that be hydro, solar, or wind power. However, these all have issues such as intermittency, where there are not constant supply of power, and battery banks large enough would never be constructed. But then I remembered a story I was told by one of my dad's good friends, who told me of how when he served in the Navy on a submarine, they would stay underwater for months at a time. And at the time, I thought, how could this be? Like, how do they not need to refuel ever? He told me that the submarines actually carry tiny little nuclear reactors that produce enough electricity to turn turbines and make sure the submarine keeps moving. And that a single submarine could power up almost an entire city if it wanted to. Once I had reminded myself of the story, I started researching nuclear power and how it all works. I thought about how men on the submarines could live down there with nuclear waste and how that could even be safe. Upon further research, I discovered that these nuclear power plants are actually extremely efficient, powerful, and clean. This was my answer to the question I had previously raised. Was nuclear power the way forward in producing a clean, constant power source? And was it even feasible to raise a question like this? After countless journals and studies, I discovered that it may indeed work, that there are already many countries out there that are actually starting to become carbon free in their production of electricity through nuclear energy, such as Sweden. Now, you might be thinking about the other half of the carbon emissions, which is cars and the general transportation industry. But if transportation sales continue in their aim towards electricity, these nuclear power plants could power the transportation industry as well, therefore solving our original problem. So to start off with, my question was, is nuclear power the way forward in generating electricity? And do we even have the technology to not only make that safe, but sustainable? Earth has long been a balance of atoms from the water cycle to the carbon cycle. There was always an equilibrium that was finely tuned from millions of years of millions of species adapting and all living in harmony, up until our opposable thumbs, that is. Since humans started to interrupt these cycles and take resources prematurely for our own benefit without thinking about the future and the implications, these decisions have unfortunately caught up with humanity, and the equilibrium and the balance of our natural world is in a crisis. The leading factor in our imminent ironic death is going to be climate change. We have pumped copious amounts of greenhouse gases into our atmosphere that our Earth is actually starting to warm. And for years, the oceans have been absorbing these gases, but now they're almost at full capacity. With over 417 parts per million of carbon dioxide, we are at a level that Earth hasn't seen in over 650,000 years. This extra carbon dioxide is keeping more of the sun's UV heat energy inside our atmosphere instead of reflecting it back into space. This heat is leading to our oceans to rise at a rate of 3.15 millimeters per year and melting our ice at a rate of 428 billion tons per year, thus further lowering our albedo and adding more water into our carbon cycle. I will be focusing on a way to reduce our carbon footprint in one simple move that has been overlooked and viewed negatively for many years. Nuclear power is a clean and sustainable way of generating it. It protects our air quality and requires little land with very low waste. Nuclear power might be one of the last ways left to produce mass amounts of electricity with no intermittency involved. Technology has also developed over time, leading this to be a safe and sustainable way for the future. So since the atomic bombs and the multiple nuclear plant meltdowns, there has been a long negative stigma concerning the safety of our nuclear power, that the need for clean energy is needed now. And although wind and solar power are great contributions towards this, on a mass scale, they have issues such as intermittency. Since incidents such as Chernobyl and Fukushima, nuclear power has also been deemed unsafe. However, recent advancements in nuclear technology have made nuclear energy safer and a more affordable way of producing power. Not only this, but if we look at the death rate per unit of energy produced from different types of sources, we will see that coal is first at a staggering 32.73 deaths per terawatt of power produced, whereas nuclear power is in sixth, with an extremely low fatality rate of only 0.07 deaths per terawatt hour of energy produced. And here is just a little bar graph to describe and show all the different ones. And you can see nuclear is all the way down here. If you have ever seen the size of a solar or a wind farm, then you would know that they're taking up massive amounts of land that the public needs for agriculture and housing. With our growing population, energy sources such as solar power and wind power may take up too much land for the overall benefit of society. Nuclear energy is also considered a renewable source of energy, although the material used in nuclear power production is not. There are methods that are being developed in order for the reactors to run off of seawater instead of uranium, and it is also the largest source of power that can produce 24/7 without emitting any carbon, and unlike other sources of carbon-free power, it is extremely reliable. Nuclear power plants can operate at a 93% efficiency rate. It has the ability to do so, as a power plant will only have to refuel after a year and a half. And here is another graph showing the land area needed to power a flat screen TV by energy source. And we can see that hydro, wind, solar, and coal are all far above nuclear, except for natural gas. The old school way of producing electricity is the burning of fossil fuels, which when burned release 0.0001% of the fuel's mass as energy. This is frankly old school technology, and the fact that we are still using it is mindless. Whereas with nuclear power, when an atom is split, it creates 1,000 times more energy than its mass, therefore producing far more power from far less. Although other fuels can be used instead of U-235, U-235 is self-sustaining. When a nucleus absorbs a neutron, it will then produce 3 new neutrons when the nucleus splits apart. This reaction produces heat, which is then used like any other power plant to boil water and turn a turbine, however, with 0 emissions. The reality is that this is a new technology that is super efficient, extremely safe, and produces no harmful gases in the process. And here is a link to a .gov website for 3 reasons why nuclear is clean and sustainable. If we are wanting to save our planet from ecological collapse, then we must act now. There may be implications and possible risk associated with nuclear power creation. However, the pros far outweigh the cons. Along with the usage of solar and wind farms, we can minimize intermittency and start a carbon-free world. The negative stigma surrounding nuclear power is unjustifiable, as with the advances in technology, the safety of these plants has radically increased. Nuclear waste is becoming an issue that is being dealt with through the recycling and reuse to produce more power. There have also been advancements in the science to where uranium might no longer be needed and seawater can be used instead. It is a carbon-free alternative to wind and solar that runs 24/7, reliably, efficiently, cleanly, all along with a smaller land footprint. For years, we have let our fear of nuclear power blind us to the benefits it holds and the potential it has to turn this planet's fate around. We are in the 21st century and are still largely using technology that was developed in the 18th century. Technology that is wildly inefficient, as well as detrimental for our atmosphere. This old school technology also has an increased risk of death by 46,757% over the cleaner nuclear alternative. People seem to focus on the few disasters that have occurred in the past and choose not to look at the facts, that this is a safe alternative to producing clean power. The world needs to wake up, and if we act swiftly, we might be able to solve one of the biggest threats humanity's existence has ever seen.